Hello, everyone. This is Jim Biringer here, NHLRumors.com. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel. We're here in the lull of the NHL offseason. I saw our articles up there on NHLRumors.com from myself, Mark Easton, talking about Mason McTavish. Erik Karlsson's out there. Nazem Kadri's name's been out there. And let's talk about Nazem Kadri. Did an article looking at the teams and the destinations that were put out by Adam Gertz of Bleacher Report and how those destinations really don't fit what the Calgary Flames are looking for and why it doesn't really fit for Nazem Kadri. Now, the teams could use Nazem Kadri, don't get me wrong, but do those teams have the pieces for what Calgary is looking to do moving forward? Obviously, some of the destinations that were named, they were 5. It was the Carolina Hurricanes, New Jersey Devils, Montreal Canadiens, Toronto Maple Leafs, and the Colorado Avalanche. Now, let's start with the last one I mentioned, Colorado. They had Nazem Kadri. They had him for the Stanley Cup playoffs. Couple runs through the Stanley Cup playoffs. Won the Stanley Cup in 2022. They couldn't bring him back because of salary cap reasons, and this is the reason why Florida has that big advantage because the cap goes up. They get to keep everybody. Colorado wasn't lucky enough to be able to keep Kadri. His number goes skyrocketing through the roof. He ends up going to the Calgary Flames. Now, Kadri's name's been out there since last year. Everybody thinks the Flames are going into this rebuild. They're doing a retool on the fly, speaking with Craig Conroy. And if you look at it, they have a 1C. It's Kadri. He's been playing with Jonathan Huberdeau. They maybe have a 2C, but they want to try to get another center. And half the league's looking for a center, a second-line center anyway, and a right shot second-line center. So, of course, if you trade Kadri away, how does this keep the Flames competitive and help them improve? Because they had 96 points a season ago, just missed the playoffs. So they're going to take that piece off to take a step back. Dustin Wolf's ready to take the next leap, and the Calgary Flames are ready to compete under Ryan Huska. So if they move out Kadri, they're going to need to get a center back. They're not winning a Kadri trade, similar to what we saw in Vancouver. Vancouver didn't win a JT Miller trade. They weren't going to win an Elias Pettersson trade. So it goes like this. Yes, Montreal can use them, but the Calgary Flames aren't taking Kirby Dach back. The Canadiens want to see what they still have in Kirby Dach. Conflicting reports about his progress and his rehab and what's going on. But Dach's a guy that if he can get going and stay healthy playing with Laine Demidov in Montreal, that's a decent second line for them. And they're not going to take that kind of contract back unless they really believe Kirby Dach's past his injuries. Now, you're taking on $7 million as well. Are the Flames going to eat $7 million? They're going to just say no. They're going to want a team to take on the whole thing, similar to what we saw with the Rangers when we got Chris Kreider, Jacob Trouba. Anaheim Ducks were able to, take on all that salary. Rangers didn't really have to retain anything. New Jersey Devils are mentioned. They need a center. But again, it came down to the same thing with JT Miller, as outlined on DevilsNation.com and NHLRumors.com. You're going to pay a guy $7 million to be your third-line center. Unless Jack Hughes is shifting to the wing, which probably he should have done to start his career, be like Patrick Kane, and then you build down the middle. But you're going to pay a guy $7 million to be your third-line center. That doesn't seem like a realistic ideal situation for the Devils. That's why JT Miller never came to New Jersey. It was never going to happen. They weren't going to pay a guy $8 million to play third-line center. And the fit isn't there. And what's New Jersey going to give up? Oh, send Dougie Hamilton back. You still got to sign Luke Hughes. Luke Hughes still is unsigned. He's probably going to get $7.5 million on a 7-8 year deal. If he gets more than $8 million, then that's a loss by Tom Fitzgerald in the negotiating ploy. And they just don't have the money to do it. They're not going to take on $7 million. Now, if you're able to have Calgary eat some money and get, Kadri, say, at 4, okay, then that's justifiable to have him third-line center because then you can go up and down the lineup. But that's going to cost you Dawson Mercer plus a prospect and a pick for retention. That's the price of doing business. So the Devils are kind of out there. Montreal's kind of out because they don't really have – they have the prospects and the picks to make it work, but Calgary needs something to help them now win. It's not like Kadri's entering the last year of his deal and they could just take prospects and picks for him. We mentioned Colorado. Brock Nelson's already signed. He signed him to a 3-year deal, $7.5 million. Again, is that a guy that would be going back to Calgary in this deal to get Kadri to go back to Colorado? But again, Colorado still has to sign Marty Necas. Kel McCarr needs a new contract. Can they take on $7 million? They've been looking for that second line center. Casey Middlestat didn't really work out. Let's see if Brock Nelson can do it. We'll see in Colorado. Carolina Hurricanes are interesting. Again, if you look at it, he could be a great fit there. What they've done this summer after bringing in Logan Stankoven as part of the Mikko Rantanen deal, they signed him to an extension. Jackson Blake gets a new deal. Sign and trade for Keandre Miller. Nikolai Ehlers signs there. They have a lot of good pieces in place. They just need a center. Kadri would make sense. You look at up and down the lineup, Jesperi Kotkaniemi's probably not going the other way. Now it would be a genius move by Eric Tulsky if he can move Kotkaniemi to Calgary. But again, that's probably going to be an add-on plus a pick to go to Calgary to get Nazem Kadri to Carolina. That's where Seth Jarvis comes into this whole thing, and I don't think they want to give up on him. Even though he doesn't have trade protection, they're probably going to treat him like he has trade protection, considering what he brings to this team with that the way that contract is. Look, he doesn't have any trade protection, so he could be a piece that moves. However, they're not going to move Seth Jarvis. He's too valuable to that team. Now, again, we saw what Bill Zito did in Florida. Moved out Jonathan Huberdeau, Mackenzie Weir to get Matthew Tkachuk. Sometimes you have to move these players out to get a player. Colorado wasn't afraid to move Mikko Rantanen. But again, I think if you could get the dollars and cents to work there, then Mikko Rantanen is still with the Colorado Avalanche and not with the Dallas Stars. Then there's Toronto Maple Leafs. He was in Toronto. He started his career with Toronto. Look, whether he was ran out of town, whether he ran himself out of town, a lot of poor time suspensions in the playoffs. Didn't help the Maple Leafs when it mattered most. Got himself out of the lineup. He plays with an edge. Everybody knows it. That's why everybody wants him, because of what he can bring. We saw him win a Stanley Cup. Again, that was the word. Can't win with Nazem Kadri. He's too physical. Going to get himself out of the lineup. Figured out a way to tone it down a little bit, but still play with an edge, helping Colorado win. What does, Brad Treliving have to work with? Easton Cowan, picks. That might get it done, but, Calgary wants a center in return. Not too many left down the middle in Toronto. They're going to have to dig deep. They're not taking David Kampf, Calle Jarnkrok. Those guys aren't going back to Calgary. If Calgary was in position to win or really rebuild this thing, maybe. But those players aren't going the other way. So as much as those destinations would be good for Kadri, the teams just can't make it work money-wise and prospect and pick-wise in the return. He's staying in Calgary because the Flames want to compete. The Flames want to make the playoffs. They have the team that they can do it. They just need another center. They're not going to give up a center to go get two centers. That's why the Vancouver Canucks did not move Elias Pettersson, because the market's not there. Now, instead of just getting one piece, you need three pieces. Calgary's in a good spot in that Pacific Division. They can take another step. Nazem Kadri isn't going to get traded. And as much the speculation is going to continue, again, if the Flames really don't have a good season, it's going to ramp up even more, especially at the deadline. But Nazem Kadri signed there. They got some good chemistry with Jonathan Huberdeau. I'd expect Kadri to be there. He's not going to be traded right now. Again, could it happen down the road? Sure. But as of now, Nazem Kadri is staying with the Calgary Flames until Craig Conroy says otherwise and until there's a deal to be made. Jim Biringer, NHLRumors.com. Like this video, comment, subscribe to the channel. We'll be back again. Take care and enjoy the offseason.